The Super Mario Wonder reviews are in, and they are incredibly positive. We have another very strong score for a Nintendo first-party title this year, sealing, I think, a spot in the Game of the Year running, as well as just cementing 2023 as one of the best years we have had in gaming for the last 10, maybe 15 years. I wanted to give you a quick sort of rundown, comb through the reviews, maybe interact with them a little bit. I'm seeing conflicting things. I've got comments about not evolving the 2D platformer genre, but John Linneman saying it's one of the best he's played in a really long time. We've got summaries, we've got Metacritics. I'm going to do this very quickly for you, but also give some of my own thoughts and my expectations and hopes about this game with its multiplayer, with its co-op, wanting to play it with my wife or my kiddos. Definitely going to be checking this game out on Friday. It's going to be a gameplay day. There's Spider-Man and Super Mario Wonder on the same day, so make sure you check those live streams out and don't miss those. Hit subscribe and the bell button so you can enjoy those streams with me. So, I mean, this is just a quick look here at its Metacritic. Absolutely insane. A 93. We have 80 critic reviews. Okay, that's actually a little bit lower than Spider-Man, so we're not sure if this is going to climb by much. Now, I don't know if this is because there are outlets that avoid Nintendo games, if this is because Nintendo maybe controlled a little bit more of who could review the game. We know they have a little bit of a history of being a little bit more controlling about who gets games, codes, and things of that nature. They seem to be playing a little bit more, friendly and nice with YouTubers and stuff. There was a time where it was kind of scary to cover their events or their games. They do seem to have loosened up a little bit, but that doesn't mean that they might not have more of a control of who gets it. But also there, again, could be outlets that just don't necessarily do much with Nintendo. That could be because they don't have anybody to review it. Sometimes an outlet won't review a sports game or a fighting game because they don't really have anybody there that is good at those games or enjoys those games. And if you look at the breakdown here on Metacritic, you will see they haven't totaled it all yet because sometimes this is behind. So you'll notice that back here it says there's 80 critic reviews, but when you go for the breakdown, it's only showing a 76 in the breakout here. So we are seeing 75 that are positive, and we do have one mixed review, and it's not loading them down there, so I wasn't going to look at those. I was just curious what the mixed review was and who it was from. So in general, you would say that this is a huge win for Nintendo, kind of similar to Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. We're seeing almost universal praise here. I mean, just overwhelmingly, I think securing a Game of the Year nomination. I think this is probably landing now in the third or fourth spot up there with Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom. It's looking like Spider-Man's obviously going to be up there as well with its current scores, with more reviews actually sitting at a 90 currently on Metacritic. It did drop from a 91 to a 90. I think somebody recently gave it a 75, the lowest score I think we've seen for Spider-Man 2. And out of that many reviews, there's going to be somebody that maybe gets a little bit nitpicky or just didn't enjoy it because it is subjective. But I think Nintendo's going to be up on that podium for Game of the Year with two titles this year, both The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Super Mario Wonder. Now, The Gamer is where I'm going to start here. They say, let's start off with The Gamer's own review. So they're doing a review roundup, and they say that their editor, Jade King, Jade gave the game a 4.5 and praised its gameplay variety, particularly thanks to the Wonder Flowers and their weird stage shifting effects, but noted that it doesn't do that much to push the 2D formula and doesn't have a lot of post-game content to offer. Now, I don't know if that's fair to take points off of a game like Mario Wonder for not having a lot of post-game content. I don't typically approach a game like Super Mario Bros. Wonder and expect post-game content. Not every game is built for that. When my daughter was playing through Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I was impressed by how much endgame content there was. My daughter beat that game and then went the distance. I mean, she was playing bosses where everything got purple and harder and the levels were harder. She really went the distance. But I don't necessarily know if every game is built for that. And on the subject of post-game content, I don't necessarily know if they were going for that or going for something that's going to be all that difficult. John Linneman weighed in and said he's polishing off his video. This is John Linneman from Digital Foundry, and he says, but this is the best 2D Mario game since Yoshi's Island by far. It has been decades since Mario played this well, and I'm not even kidding. Only real complaint I have, it's a little on the easy side. But hey, listen, It's nice to have a game that's a little bit easy, right? We've all played platformers. I remember there was a Donkey Kong where I was trying to play it with my wife. I think this was on the Nintendo Wii. This is going back. And it got harder and harder and harder, and it became harder for 2 players. It was actually easier with just a single person. So I do think, since one of the themes of this game is, like, if you just look at the artwork, right? Like, here's Shinobi's breakdown. If you just look at the artwork, they're clearly, advertising this as just a fun, lighthearted game where you can play together. You can play with, like, up to 4 people. And I think that is one of the reasons why it's probably not got a lot of post-game content, and probably why it's a little bit more on the easier side, because, hey, if you're wanting to play a game like this with your kiddos or your significant other, it can't get crazy hard. That really puts a damper on the experience. So the Yoshi game that, my kids and I were playing, I think similarly, if you're going for all the little things and finding them and looping back, you can kind of voluntarily increase the difficulty, but the game itself is not inherently difficult. And you can see here, just on Shinobi's tweet, overwhelmingly, look at the scores. Look at all these 5 out of 5s from these outlets. Look at all these 10s, all these 9s. There's an 8. So you can see here, Metacritic, it's getting a 94. OpenCritic, it's getting a 93. And it has dropped on Metacritic. So Shinobi sent this tweet early in the day, around 9 in the morning Eastern time. Been viewed 1 million times. Props to you, Shinobi. Not bad on the views there. But it has dropped by 1 point since then. More than likely, what dropped it was this mixed review. And I think that's always a challenge with long-standing franchises like Mario. I think Spider-Man faces similar difficulties with reviews because people have their own ideas about what a Spider-Man game should be. They might be comic book fans. They might be, thinking about what the story should have done or should not have done. And GameSpot has put together a really nice summary that I thought would be good to look at what's everybody saying. So scores are one thing, but what are they saying? The GameSpot gives it a 9 out of 10. And their review calls it a rightful successor to Super Mario World, and that the game delivers such a knockout performance that it makes the argument, implicit or otherwise, that 2D Mario games can be just as vital to the medium as their 3D siblings. I love that this is part of the narrative, because I remember when this game was announced, I saw people saying that it shouldn't be a full-priced game because it's 2D. And I couldn't fathom the reasoning. Just kind of like boom, like went right off my head. I was like, what? Like, what is that? Why would that determine the price of a game? Some of my favorite games are 2D. Hollow Knight is amazing. Both of the Ori games are phenomenal, especially Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I really encourage people to play the first Ori, then play Hollow Knight, then play Will of the Wisps, because they took so much inspiration and ideas from Hollow Knight. It almost feels like an unintentional trilogy. They're very different games, but I think they're wonderful as far as Metroidvanias go. And they're 2D. And I would say that Will of the Wisps especially, the original soundtrack, good night, Quolok's Malaise, the way they used Quolok's melody throughout that game, it's well worth full price. I would never think that a game isn't worthy of full price if it's 2D. That's ludicrous. I'm glad this game is cementing that reality, and if it gets a Game of the Year nomination, that really quiets all of the naysayers. Shaq News gives it a 10 out of 10 and says the following: each level is perfectly crafted by the Nintendo wizards, but it really does feel like they threw out the rule book when they made Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The result is one of the best 2D Mario games ever made that is teeming with genuinely unique gameplay experiences, with a spectrum of challenges ranging from a single star to much more difficult 5-star levels. I love the reiteration of what Linneman said. This is the best 2D Mario game ever made. Linneman didn't quite say that. He says it's the best. What did he say? It's the best 2D Mario game since Yoshi's Island. So huge praise here from people in sort of the landscape of gaming and the history of Mario as 2D. I love the return to form here. We got Super Mario Bros. Wonder. We got Super Mario RPG Remake. I always said that was my only, that's like the only turn-based game I ever really fully enjoyed. I actually really enjoyed Child of Light, but Super Mario RPG was the one I always said I would probably play beginning to end if they ever remade it. Funny enough, the day I said that, like a day later they announced it. It was so cool. I was really excited because I grew up on games like that. I grew up as a Nintendo family. And the other Mario game, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong, almost a spiritual successor / interpretation of, the old Donkey Kong games where you're trying to get up to the top and solve, get over the barrels. Well, instead of doing that, it's more like puzzle. I love this return to almost the classics is what it feels like, but not necessarily. Almost like, hey, let's update everything and make it cooler. Let's look at a couple more here. VGC gives it a 5 out of 5. And Andy Robinson here says, with its focus on new ideas over nostalgia, tight design, and striking presentation, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is undoubtedly the plumber's most memorable 2D outing since the 90s. David Jenkins here from Eurogamers gives it a 5 out of 5. Forget therapy dogs and comfort food if things are getting you down and you want to feel good about life, the universe, and everything, then we strongly recommend spending some time with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I kind of touched on that when Linneman said, it's not that hard, but hey. Right? You can almost hear him smiling when he types that, right? If you're familiar with how he smiles in his presentation on the Digital Foundry podcast, you can almost hear him smiling. Like, but hey, it's Mario. It's a feel-good game. We need feel-good games. This is such a wonderful year for gaming, and to have first-party Nintendo property crushing it right now, I love that is just, it's such a repudiation of a lot of the dialogue about games and what games should be and where they should be. And I love the fact that they're saying, no, this is our game. We're going to build it for our system. And, they're still cranking out Switches. The fact that the Switch 2 is likely coming next year. I absolutely love this for Nintendo. I love it for Mario. Again, a lot of nostalgia for me with Nintendo, and it has been kind of a disappointment that two of the best games for the Nintendo Switch I struggle to play because of the 30 FPS. I'm really hoping the next Switch can rectify that, both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. This game, obviously, that's not as much of a concern. I don't think platformers, it doesn't really bother me if they're not hitting 60 FPS because it's less of a pan and scan camera movement that almost feels jittery. The side-scrolling is not nearly as noticeable. So I'm actually not sure what this clocks in at. We'll have to check out Linneman's video over at Digital Foundry to see what performance is like. I remember in the trailer seeing some frame droppage when there was like 4 people on the screen and there was all this stuff falling in the background, like cascading. I could see that would make it, a little bit difficult to maintain the frames, but overall it looked like it, a very, very solid game, both graphically as well as performance. Let's just look at 2 more here. We got Tech Radar and Nintendo Life. Let's see what they have to say. Catherine Lewis from Tech Radar, 10 out of 10. Playing Super Mario Bros. Wonder reminded me what video games are all about. Having fun. Nintendo's latest side-scrolling platformer has refined and built upon the 2D Mario installments that came before it, adding an onslaught of original creative ideas that never feel old, loads of secrets to uncover, visuals that pop, and tiny details that are genuine joy to spot. Actually, you know what? Let me see if there's any in here. No, there aren't. I was wanting to see if I could find a review that wasn't super high praise. Metacritic is being really, really squirrely right now. I'm going to see if I can scroll down. Here it is, Digital Spy. Let's see if we can pull it up. We can. I got the one from Digital Spy. So this is the one that pulled it down from the morning. Let's see what they say. They gave it a 70. Everybody's giving it like, 8.5s, 9s, and 10s. Okay, what do you got, Digital Spy? Let's see. It is a game that tries to evoke a feeling of discovery at every possible turn, but in doing so loses the element of wonder fairly quickly. Instead, Wonder's strongest moments are when it takes a breather, taking the time to set the scene while letting the platforming do the talking. I would never say that someone's subjective experience or opinion about a game is wrong, but this feels very much expectation driven. It's almost as if they sort of went in expecting something that it didn't deliver. Like the person that gave, a 4 out of 5. Okay, that's an 8. That's an 80%. And they said, there wasn't a lot of post-game content. Well, that's a weird expectation, if I'm honest. I think some of the times modern games have set expectations that a game like this isn't setting. There's no post-game content. There's no season. There's no DLC. There's no expansion. There's no hard mode. It's Super Mario Bros. Wonder. 1 to 4 players, amazing platforming. Go have some fun, okay? Expecting it to, have this sense of exploration. That's just a weird, I think, expectation for this game. So I'm not dismissing that review. I'm just saying, I don't think that's one that is as fair as the others, because it seems like it's taking off points for expectations that the game never set out for itself. So I'm checking this game out, so make sure, see if that broadcast is ready or not if you're watching this later, to see what my thoughts were. I'm going to play this with my kiddos. If you're a member, there'll probably be a Friday night where I play this with my wife. We recently played Mario Party. That's a great reason to be a member. These videos always typically roll over into a members-only debrief where you can hang out with me and the other members. If you're not going to do a membership, that's totally fine. You can watch all my other content. Just hit subscribe and the bell button so I can see you in the next video.